Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to do something your ancient ancestors never did. You are going to turn on a light. And the moment you do, you will erase 300,000 years of human experience in a single flick of a switch. Because for almost all of human history, when the sun set, the world did not dim. It did not soften. It disappeared. And what happened next? In that total swallowing darkness, shaped your brain, your body, and your instincts in ways you are still carrying right now. Most people assume ancient humans simply went to sleep when it got dark. That the night was dead time, empty time, time to be survived and forgotten. But that assumption is wrong. And the real answer is far stranger than you have been told. The night was not a gap in ancient human life. It was a second life entirely. Anthropologist Jerome Siegel spent years studying the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. He wanted to know how they actually slept, not how we imagined they slept, how they actually, measurably slept. What he found overturned almost everything we thought we knew. The Hadza did not sleep when it got dark. They stayed awake for hours after sunset. They talked. They told stories. They sat together around fires that burned well past midnight. Their average sleep onset was not at dusk. It was around 10 or 11 at night, and they woke before sunrise, often lying quietly in the dark for an hour or more before rising. Their sleep was not 8 hours. It was not even 7. It averaged just over 6.5 hours. And yet, they showed almost no signs of insomnia, no chronic fatigue, none of the sleep disorders that plague the modern world. So what were they doing in those hours between darkness and sleep? They were doing what humans have always done when the pressure of daylight lifts. They were being human. Around the fire, ancient people talked. Not about tasks, not about plans for tomorrow. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied Hadza campfire conversations over decades and found something remarkable. During the day, about 80% of conversation was practical, complaints, criticism, gossip about resources and territory. But at night, around the fire, that flipped entirely. At night, more than 80% of conversation was storytelling. Myths, legends, tales of spirits, heroes, transformations, and lessons wrapped inside narrative. The night was when ancient humans passed down everything that made them human. Not through textbooks, through stories told in the orange light of a flame while the rest of the world went dark. Think about what that means. The campfire was not just a heat source, it was a classroom, a temple, a stage, and the darkness surrounding it was the theater. Brian Boyd, an evolutionary literary scholar, has argued that storytelling around fires may have been one of the most cognitively significant behaviors in all of human evolution. When you sit in firelight and listen to a story, your brain does something extraordinary. It begins to simulate the experience being described. Your neural activity starts to mirror the speakers. Your heartbeat changes. Your breathing synchronizes with the group. For a few minutes, a dozen separate minds begin to move together as one. This was not entertainment. This was the original technology of cooperation. Your ancestors used the night to bind their group together, to transmit knowledge across generations, to rehearse scenarios they had never experienced. A story about a lion attack at the waterhole was not just exciting, it was preparation. Your brain, sitting in the dark, could practice the fear response, the decision-making, the survival choice, all without any actual danger present. The night was the training ground for the human mind. And then there was something else happening in those hours of darkness. Something researchers only began to understand in the 1990s. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment. He took a group of healthy volunteers and gave them 14 hours of darkness every night for a month, simulating the conditions of a pre-industrial winter. Something unexpected happened. The volunteers did not sleep for 8 straight hours. They slept in 2 separate blocks, each roughly 4 hours long, with a quiet wakeful period in between. They called this period the watch, and during it, they described feeling an unusual, dreamlike calm. Their prolactin levels, a hormone associated with deep relaxation and altered consciousness, spiked dramatically during this interval. Wehr concluded that segmented sleep, split into two halves with a conscious interval in between, may have been the natural human sleep pattern for most of our species' existence. Historian Roger Ekirch later found thousands of references to this pattern in medieval and early modern European records. People wrote about their first sleep and their second sleep as a matter of routine. They woke in the night, prayed, had sex, thought, visited neighbors, and then returned to sleep. This was not insomnia. It was the original rhythm of the human night. What happened in that quiet waking interval? People thought. They lay in the dark and processed the day. They dreamed in the half-conscious state between sleep cycles, a state neuroscientists now call hypnagogia, a threshold zone where the brain produces vivid associative imagery. Inventors, artists, and thinkers throughout history have described this state as the source of their most important ideas. Thomas Edison napped deliberately to reach it. Salvador Dali famously held a spoon while he dozed so that the clatter of it hitting a plate would wake him at the edge of dreaming. They were, without fully knowing it, doing what ancient humans had always done, mining the night for what the busy day could not produce. The darkness was not emptiness, it was a different kind of access. And there was one more dimension to the ancient night that modern humans have almost completely lost. The sky, before electric light, before even gas lamps, the night sky above every human settlement blazed. Stars that you have never seen in your lifetime were visible to every person who has ever lived before the last 150 years. The Milky Way was not a photograph, it was a road overhead, dense and white and overwhelming. Ancient peoples named it, navigated by it, built temples aligned to it, told stories that gave it meaning. Archaeoastronomer Dwayne Hamacher has documented how indigenous Australian peoples maintained some of the oldest and most sophisticated knowledge of stellar patterns ever recorded, not through telescopes, but through generations of night watching passed down in oral tradition. They tracked the dark patches between stars, not just the stars themselves. They read the sky the way you read a page. The night sky was a map of time, season, and story. And every human being alive before the industrial age had it memorized. Now you can name maybe 3 constellations if someone reminds you they exist. What did ancient humans do at night? They talked until midnight. They told stories that synchronized their minds. They slept in 2 halves, waking in between to pray or dream or simply think. They watched a sky that no one alive today has ever truly seen. They were more awake in some ways during the dark hours than they were in the grinding labor of the day. The night was not dead time. It was sacred time. And something in you still knows this. You have felt it, that particular pull that comes late at night when the world is quiet and something loosens inside your chest, when thoughts arrive that you cannot seem to find during the day, when conversations go deeper than they have any right to, when you sit outside and look up and feel for just a moment something enormous and very old stirring behind your eyes. That is not insomnia. That is not restlessness. That is your ancient brain waking up. Because for 300,000 years, the night was when the real life happened. When the stories were told and the skills were passed down and the sky was red and the group was held together by firelight and voice. And tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to turn on a light. And just for a moment before you do, notice what is already there in the dark.